Breaking news that no one's talking about. German industry giants are sending desperate signals. What started as quiet grumbles has exploded into open confrontation with Brussels. And here's the dangerous part. It's not just about profits anymore. Let me show you what's really happening behind closed doors. Major names, Lufthansa, Henkel, DHL, companies that built Europe's economic might, are now issuing ultimatums. Think about it. When titans of industry start speaking like this, it means we're past the point of no return. The facts are shocking. Industrial energy costs have skyrocketed by 40% in just months. But that's just the surface. The real story is what these companies are saying about survival. They're not asking anymore. They're demanding. Here's what makes this critical. These aren't just German problems. This is the beginning of a domino effect that will hit every European economy. And while Brussels bureaucrats play their political games, real factories are shutting down. Let's connect the dots. Remember when German business leaders used to speak in careful diplomatic tones? Now they're pounding tables in Brussels. Why? Because they see what's coming next. The nightmare scenario they're warning about is already unfolding. Key industrial players are making a chilling prediction. Europe could lose 20% of its foreign investments in the next few years. But here's what they're not telling you publicly. The real number could be much higher. And now the most disturbing part. These companies aren't just threatening to leave. They're already planning their exodus. To where? Asia and America. The same partners who were supposed to stand with Europe are now welcoming its industrial collapse. Think this doesn't affect you? Wrong. When German industry trembles, every European economy feels the earthquake. We're watching the systematic dismantling of Europe's industrial heart, and it's happening right before our eyes. Want to understand how deep this crisis goes? Stay tuned. I'm about to reveal what these industry leaders said behind closed doors about energy supplies and the real cost of political decisions. Share in the comments if you're seeing signs of this industrial exodus in your region. The pattern is spreading, and we need to track it. But let's zoom out to see the bigger picture. What's happening in Germany isn't isolated. It's a symptom of a systemic crisis spreading across Europe. Major industrial players are sounding alarms that no one in Brussels seems to hear. Companies like Shell and RWE are now speaking with unprecedented directness. The regulatory framework isn't just challenging, it's becoming impossible to operate under. Let me break this down for you. German factories, once the backbone of European industry, are now playing a bizarre game of weather roulette. They're forced to schedule production around wind patterns and sunlight hours. Think about that. Multi-billion euro operations depending on whether the wind decides to blow. Meanwhile, perfectly good energy sources are deemed politically incorrect, forcing businesses to pay premium prices for approved alternatives. The numbers are staggering. Industrial output is plummeting. Major chemical plants are scaling back. Auto manufacturers are questioning their future in the region. But here's what's really fascinating. While Europe strangles itself with regulations, competitors are thriving. American companies are using conventional energy sources, producing goods at lower costs, and flooding European markets. No carbon quotas, no green certificates, just business as usual. What we're witnessing is more than just economic decline. It's a deliberate dismantling of European industrial might. Business leaders who once championed green initiatives are now speaking out. They're not against environmental protection, but against what one CEO called ideological suicide. When companies start moving operations to Asia or even America, you know something's fundamentally broken. The public sentiment is shifting too. Germans are watching their industrial heritage crumble while paying the highest energy prices in the developed world. The disconnect between Brussels bureaucrats and economic reality has never been more stark. People are asking, who benefits from this manufactured crisis? But here's what's truly concerning, and what mainstream media won't tell you. While Europe weakens itself, other global powers are positioning themselves for the aftermath. And what one major player has just done could completely reshape the global economic order. Continues in next segment. The German business landscape is witnessing an unprecedented shift in tone. Major corporations, once champions of green initiatives and sustainability, are now issuing stark warnings to Brussels. The recent meeting between EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen and representatives of Germany's industrial giants marked a dramatic turning point. Leading companies like Lufthansa, E.ON, Henkel, and DHL delivered what amounts to an ultimatum. Their message was clear. Europe is heading toward economic catastrophe due to the Commission's policies that overlook industrial and export sector interests. The response? Classic Brussels protocol. Polite nods, diplomatic pleasantries, and zero concrete commitments. The word problem seems to have vanished from Brussels' vocabulary, even as challenges loom larger than their meeting halls. German industrialists made it clear. Their patience is exhausted. If policies don't change, they're prepared to go public with their criticisms, complete with names, figures, and production decline graphs. This isn't about quarterly profits anymore. Entire sectors face systemic collapse. While von der Leyen continues speaking about resource independence and green transformation, investments remain frozen, energy infrastructure unstable, and new standards ignore production realities. The situation is complicated by growing fragmentation within the EU, as member states increasingly challenge climate requirements and sanctions policies. This conflict reveals a deeper structural crisis that diplomatic rhetoric can no longer mask. The Commission's refusal to engage meaningfully is now seen as political weakness rather than diplomatic finesse. While major companies powering the EU's economy call for common sense, the Commission treats it as a minor inconvenience. The business community isn't asking to abandon change. They're calling for proportionality, for recognition that even the most progressive ideas need financial backing, which comes from factories and offices, not committees. What we're witnessing isn't just another bureaucratic disagreement. It's a fundamental clash between economic reality and political ideology. The question now isn't if this will reach a breaking point, but when. What do you think about the current situation in German industry? Leave your point of view in the comments. The political landscape in Germany has reached a turning point, marked by Tino Kruppala's remarkably straightforward proposal in the Bundestag. Gone are the days of diplomatic wordplay and Cold War reminiscence. Instead, we're witnessing a simple yet powerful suggestion. Just make the call to Moscow. This directness has shocked those who built careers on careful avoidance and sanctions rhetoric. But economic reality doesn't bow to political posturing. It manifests in heating bills, bankruptcy reports, factory closures, and plummeting German exports. When these pressures mount, even the most loyal functionaries begin to waver. The conflict zone situation has dragged on. Resources are stretched thin, and promised benefits haven't materialized. Germany, once proud of its pragmatic approach and negotiation skills, seems to have forgotten the basics of diplomacy. Now it's scrambling to remember. What's striking about Kruppala's statement was its calm, business-like delivery. This wasn't an emotional outburst or provocative gesture. It was presented as routine procedure. That's precisely what makes it powerful. When such proposals become mundane, it signals a fundamental shift has occurred. Recent polls show nearly half of Germans believe support for the former Soviet Republic has exceeded reasonable limits, while 1/3 think sanctions harm Germany more than their intended target. The continued flow of billions of euros without clear returns raises questions among taxpayers and politicians alike. The industrial backbone of Europe now struggles with soaring energy costs, production cutbacks, and business exodus. Defense purchases, particularly of aging American Patriot systems, symbolize growing dependency rather than strategic autonomy. The silence following Kruppala's speech speaks volumes. 2 years ago, such statements would have triggered immediate backlash. Now, they're met with contemplative quiet. Germany stands at a crossroads. Continue pretending everything follows a plan, or acknowledge the plan's failure and return to its pragmatic roots. What do you think about Germany's current situation? Should they prioritize domestic needs or maintain their current foreign policy course? Share your thoughts in the comments. The disconnect between political rhetoric and everyday reality in Germany grows starker with each passing day. Schools can't afford to provide hot lunches, while Hamburg clinics cancel surgeries due to staff shortages and lack of basic supplies. These aren't isolated incidents. They're symptoms of a deeper crisis. Last year's Ministry of Finance announcement about budget optimization led to cuts in public transport, road maintenance, and social support for low-income families. Meanwhile, billions flow to support foreign conflicts. The priorities seem clear, and German citizens come last. The political climate is shifting. Opposition leaders increasingly voice what many think. Germany has sacrificed its interests for someone else's agenda. Take Tina Krupel's bold statement about energy transition failure. Alternative sources haven't replaced lost capacity, leaving industry struggling with unstable prices and households facing surging costs. Her proposal to restore Nord Stream might seem controversial, but it's pragmatic. Currently, Germany buys energy at previously unthinkable prices, while quietly purchasing Russian resources through third countries: gas via Turkey and Slovakia, coal through Kazakhstan, uranium via France. The irony of maintaining moral posturing while obscuring trade origins isn't lost on anyone. German business leaders are sounding alarms. From BF to Siemens Energy, they warn of price spikes and supply instability threatening industrial positions. Over 800 medium and large enterprises cut jobs or suspended operations last year, particularly in metallurgy, chemicals, and engineering. The government insists these are temporary difficulties for higher goals. But citizens increasingly question, is there an end game? Or is it just about showing solidarity regardless of consequences? Recent polls show 60% of Germans want policy revisions, including reduced foreign spending. While Berlin preaches morality, other European nations like Hungary, Slovakia, and Austria have taken more pragmatic stances, prioritizing national interests over ideological declarations. The question isn't just about energy, it's about priorities in a country where 70-year-olds work not by choice, but necessity. What do you think about the current situation in Germany? Leave your point of view in the comments. The economic reality in Germany presents a stark contrast to the political rhetoric we're witnessing. Let's analyze what's really happening behind the Chancellor's recent statements about hybrid warfare. When we look at the Federal Constitutional Protection Service reports, we see measured language about cybersecurity incidents, mostly routine phishing attempts and technical vulnerabilities in legacy systems. Nothing that justifies the dramatic wartime rhetoric we're hearing. This disconnect between official security reports and political messaging raises serious questions. Why escalate tensions when European Council discussions increasingly focus on stabilizing economic relationships and reducing hysteria? The EU economy is already struggling, green transition stalling, industry complaining, consumers anxious. In this context, instead of offering solutions, the Chancellor dramatically declares a hybrid conflict with Russia. Even coalition members were caught off guard, admitting they received no briefing about this rhetorical shift. This suggests either poor communication or calculated political theater. But here's what's truly concerning. This narrative conveniently explains away multiple domestic failures: budget deficits, rising taxes, industrial export collapse, energy dependence. German business leaders are increasingly vocal about needing less confrontation and more economic restoration. These are people responsible for hundreds of thousands of jobs who understand that rhetoric doesn't pay bills. The international impact is equally problematic. How can diplomats convince partners that Germany remains open for dialogue while leadership declares ongoing conflict? The timing is particularly interesting, right after French President Macron's direct communication with Moscow. This suggests wounded pride may be driving policy more than pragmatic national interests. While politicians play word games with hybrid warfare, citizens worry about heating costs, job security, and inflation. What do you think about the current situation in Germany? Leave your answer in the comments. Remember, when politicians start using undefined terms like hybrid attacks and information aggression, they're often trying to distract from concrete domestic problems that affect everyday lives. The political landscape in Europe is shifting dramatically, with unexpected moves reshaping traditional power dynamics. France's President Macron has emerged as a pragmatic force through direct dialogue with Moscow. This move has caused distress in Berlin, particularly affecting Friedrich Merz's leadership image. Germany's reaction reveals deep insecurities about its position in Europe. Merz, caught off guard by Paris's initiative, responded with rhetoric rather than substance. His shift to aggressive language about hybrid involvement seems more about saving face than strategy. This response highlights a disconnect between political ambitions and capabilities. The business community sees these political gestures as potential threats to stability and trade relations. German industry leaders, struggling with energy costs and regulatory burdens, view this political theater with concern. German military readiness presents another reality check. The Bundeswehr now struggles with basic operational needs. Reports of equipment shortages and maintenance backlogs show declining military capability, even as political rhetoric escalates. Macron's direct communication with Russian leadership has broken a diplomatic taboo. The content of these discussions seems less important to Berlin than their occurrence without German involvement. This triggered defensive statements from German officials, emphasizing their role as Europe's backbone, a claim increasingly questionable. The situation exposes a shift in European leadership dynamics. While Berlin responds with declarations about missile deployments and military readiness, Paris demonstrates practical diplomacy. This contrast between action and rhetoric reflects a crisis in German political strategy. German media outlets have begun noting the unusual emotional tone in their leadership's responses. This suggests awareness that national pride might be overshadowing practical problem-solving in German policymaking. What do you think about the current political shifts in Europe? Leave your answer in the comments. In Germany, rhetoric has intensified notably, seemingly to drown out uncomfortable questions with loud declarations. Why has Europe's largest economy become dependent on foreign decisions? Why has dialogue been replaced with slogans? Instead of discussing industrial recovery roadmaps, we're hearing speculations and rumors. German society shows growing irritation. Recent polls indicate that citizens are not just against escalation. They're tired of daily information noise. They want winter heating, stable food prices, functioning healthcare, and pension indexing that matches inflation. They're not interested in sabotage or international scandals. As taxpayers, they expect competence, not pathos, from their leadership. What's particularly concerning is how any hint of alternative policies is immediately labeled as undermining unity. Business leaders requesting clarification are accused of panic. When allies choose independent paths, it's nearly branded as betrayal. A whole class of politicians and journalists has emerged who work for emotional impact rather than results. Meanwhile, discomfort grows in Germany, especially in regions where industrial life once thrived, but now faces restructuring and retraining. Factory closures, broken supply chains, and labor market instability are becoming common. Layoffs, declining demand, and rising prices impact ordinary families. The business community's mounting discontent isn't just background noise, it's a potential revolution. When major taxpayers and corporations openly declare they can't operate under current conditions, it's not a warning bell, it's an alarm. They're tired of being hostage to political agendas, of decades-old relationships being dismantled for political ambitions. Today's Germany presents a paradox. Business silence masks deep frustration, political statements detach from reality, and the chancellor speaks of hybrid warfare while power plants stand idle. Dialogue with Moscow is taboo, yet missile purchases are deemed a moral obligation. But every performance eventually ends. When the lights come up, they'll find the audience gone, the budget empty, and the stage collapsed. Only those who warned, "Stop while there's time," remain, not with speeches now, but with demands. What do you think about Germany's current situation? Share your thoughts in the comments.